Hello everyone and welcome back to another Chess Basics in under 15 minutes, and this time we are going to do Meet the Knights. So the knights, you have uh, two of them on your side of the board, and they are very famous for moving in an L shape, a very odd shape. So knights can be very tricky and knights can be very complicated, so I'm going to do my best to try and at least go through some of it. I've got a lot of stuff planned, so I might not have time for it all, but we'll see what happens. You can see the knights. Knights are the only other piece apart from pawns which can move on the first move because they can jump over pieces where the arrows show. Right. So one of the strongest moves in the opening is knight f3, and it's just a common opening. So your knight moves like this, goes from here to here in a sort of L shape. Three spaces. Well, two spaces and then one across. Okay. And then this is called the Reti opening. I like it quite a lot. It's very flexible, and yeah. So let's just get into more knight moves. So we've got a knight on the board. We've got a bunch of pawns, and you can see that the knight has got lots of targets. So in the middle, knights are much better because we'll take that there, and we can see we've got 8 squares we can go to. 8 squares. That is the maximum number of squares a knight can sort of influence. Well, also the one that is, so 9 technically, but it can attack 8 things. You can see here. So you go L shape, and you've got another L shape, and you've got another L shape. Oh, it doesn't like me doing 2 arrows. But honestly, I think that one of the best ways you can think about knight moves is if you just play online, because you're forced to make the only legal moves. So yeah, let's just continue making moves so you can see it captures just by landing on a piece and taking the piece. And you also put the king in check with another L shape, like that. And we're just going to keep making some moves. Right, so now the knight is on the side of the board here, on the A file. So now let's count the number of squares the knight's got. Well, the knight has only got 4 squares now. It's a very common saying. Well, it's not always true. It's a good rule of thumb, but not true in every position. Knights on the rim are dim. That is what a lot of people have said, because they can't attack. They attack half as many squares, right? So let's just keep making moves. Knight b3, and now in the corner the knight has 2 moves, so it's even worse in the corner. So your knight's like good strong outpost in the middle of the board. We'll get onto that in a little bit. Another thing knights are famous for is the knight fork, right? This is something you will get pinged with time and time again. So, we're looking at our L shapes. Where would the knight go, which would be horrific? Well, knight c7 with check. So, this is a very common theme. Often it's a rook here, not a queen, but this is a royal fork because we're hitting the king and the queen. So, a fork is where you hit 2 pieces at once. So, generally, a fork is a good tactic to employ because your opponent only has 1 move, so they can only generally save 1 of the pieces, unless they manage to, I don't know, save something with tempo, but which is where you move with a threat. But like the king has to move, right? So the king moves, and then knight takes the queen, and we've won a queen. That's what a fork is. You'll come to hate those if you've only just discovered them, and those of you who have already come across forks before, I feel your pain. Okay, outposts. So I'm just going to quickly play through an opening. This is an opening I play a fair bit. To give you just an idea of it. Okay, so in the opening now, we've got a nice strong knight in the middle of the board, and this is what's known as an outpost, right? It's not a proper one, but in the start of the game, you do want to get your pieces into the middle. So Black is almost forced to capture such a strong knight, because the knight is influencing all these squares here, and it's so annoying. Black just is almost forced to take this. So let's have a look at a game. So one of the most famous players for his knight usage is Anand, world champion Vishy Anand. He is I think he's still in the top 20 today currently, which is insane. But let's just go through some moves. I actually should have analysed this game beforehand, but we'll do it on the fly. G3, so we've got a Catalan type opening. This is all standard development, but we're only here for the knights. So queen takes, pawn moves, and this is where we start to see some pressure. So the knight moves onto the rim, but it's not so dim because we're actually putting pressure on these pawns here, trying to use our knight to maneuver around and just sort of pressurize the opponent's pawns, which have been extended a bit too far. And now our knight jumps to a lovely outpost in the center of the board. So the knight cannot be kicked away by a pawn. That's generally, at the moment, so that's generally what an outpost is. But it's a nice square for the knight. You don't want to take this bishop because this is like last episode. This is a bad bishop currently. So we've got a nice strong knight. So we're quite happy. Knight d5. Black does a similar thing, trying to get their knight to a nice outpost. But we kick it away. You can often give knights a good kick with a pawn. So you use a pawn. This is why that's not really an outpost, because a pawn can come and kick that knight away, and the knight has to move away. Knight b4, and it comes to this square here, which is kind of strong, but it's not as strong as the middle, because why is that? Well, the knight's not got as many squares to go to. The knight's only got 6 squares that can move to, and most of them are actually taken, rather than the full 8. Castles, castles. Rook fd1, we're just strengthening the centre of the board here. Bishop moves back, and now we start to break through with our pawns. But we're only here for the knight moves. I'll go into other strategy in other videos. So knight g4. Well, our knight was being attacked by the queen, so we're moving our knight around to try and figure out where this knight can go to. This knight needs to... You often need to find a place for your knights, right? So this knight, where can it have a future? Well, on g4 it's not doing very much, and you can often just kick it away with h5. So where do you want to put it? Well, e3 looks like a potential square to maneuver to, and then maybe we can try and swap off this knight and try and get our knight into d4. d4 looks like a decent square for our knight, so maybe we can try and get it to there. Queen moves, knight e3, so Anand's moving his knight around, trying to figure out where to put that knight. Okay, so Topalov has got 2 knights on the edge of the board, and they're not doing too great. But maybe he's going to try and move his knight around to c7 and try and get it into the game that way. Because knights are generally quite slow pieces, right? Because they're not like bishops or rooks or queens where they can just throw themselves all over the board. You have to maneuver around that. You have to spend time getting your knights into good positions. What time on? 7 minutes. Okay. Pawn takes, and knight takes. So now we're getting our knight into the middle of the board. We're getting into this lovely square on d6, because this is an outpost, because we protected it with our queen and our rook, and our knight will live happily there. Bishop takes c6. Did someone just challenge me? Oh, he did. So bishop takes c6, rook ac1. We're just putting pressure on the queen, getting ready to move our knight into this square and threaten that queen there. h6, knight d6. Topalov obviously didn't really care about this threat, but it's not really a threat against the queen, really. It's more of a threat of getting our knight to this lovely square. Look at that powerful knight now, controlling all these squares in Black's camp. Look at that. That is what you call a strong knight outpost. That is like the definition of a knight outpost right there. Knight g4. Our knight's moving back to g4, and where's it going to land? Maybe it's going to land on h6, sacrifice itself for the greater good. Maybe it's going to land on e5 and kick away this bishop and become another nuisance. Rook ad8. Knight takes h6. Here we go. We're knight sacrifices now. Queen takes. So we're just threatening to like sort of check and then move our pieces around in a sort of try and mate. Now, f6, e5. We're protecting our knight on there, and we're also going to plan to swing our rook and our bishop around if needed. This bishop is also attacked twice. Bishop takes, oh sorry, pawn takes, because we're threatening check and mate. Rook has to give itself up for that powerful knight. That knight was so powerful, the rook had to sacrifice itself for it. In terms of relative value, rooks are generally better than knights, but because our knight was so good, he had to give up the rook for it. Bishop takes, bishop e4, protecting the bishop and guarding h7. And now we just see that Anand probably calculated all of this, and we're now threatening mate, and you can't stop mate. But that basically came from some good knight manoeuvring, with our knights on g4 moving itself around, and eventually it got itself, well, one of the knights got themselves to d6 and was such a powerful piece that it had to be given up. Sorry that I didn't go into too much detail on the sacrifice or anything. That's not what this video is about. This is just about knight moves, right? Okay. So knight sacrifices on e6. Well, we're gonna start here, I think. Okay, so this is Judith Polgar versus Hans Reh. So Judith is one of the most famous attacking players ever. She's a beast, and what she's really famous for is playing in the Sicilian, right? Oh, sorry, no. This is the move, right? She's really famous for sacrificing the knights. So knights are very good at just throwing themselves in and blowing up pawn structures because they can. Because they move in such an odd way, they're often perfect for slapping on pawn structures. So the knight moves out the way, and now we can see that the knight moves back where it's got hit by his pawn, right? And what does that mean? Well, all of these pieces are cramped on the queen side, right? So this is like prime real estate to start attacking. Bishop h5. We're moving our bishop in, pressuring the rook, and we're getting ready to give up our knight on e6. Knight on e6 is a very common sort of theme. Bishop g6, g6, bishop g4, and now we're eyeing up the e6 square. Knight c6, and boom! Knight takes e6. We love to see it. So we've given up on knight so that we can blow up the pawn structure and then start going for the enemy king. Because look, all the pieces are on this side of the board, not doing too great. The king moves to h8. We're going to have some pressure with our dark square bishop and our queen like coming in. This is going to be dangerous. King h8, knight d5. Now we get our other knight in. We're going to put pressure on one of the only good pieces in Black's camp, which can defend our threat of throwing in the bishop to d4. And we're also hitting the queen. Queen b8. Bishop f7. Another great move. In between move, we're hitting that bishop so we can then take this one and then start threatening the king. So the bishop comes in, attacking the king. And now we swap off some pieces. And we've got so much pressure on here that black just can't cope. I'm just going to play through because it's really nice. And there we go. So you can't really stop the threat of this. If you take, then we just take back with the queen. But that knight on e6 is a very common theme in a lot of Sicilian openings. I assume some of you will play the Sicilian. But so yeah, so this knights can often give themselves up for a couple of pawns, and you can get a lot of play for that. So I'll do a whole video on sacrifices on e6 at some point, but that is currently what we've got so far. Just enjoy it, just so you know what it is, so you've seen it, and then we can move on to the next thing. So there is another game on here, but I don't think I have time to go through it. This game is another one by Anand. I honestly do not understand this game at all. Let's take it from the black side, because Anand is black. So Anand, very famous for this game and using his knights. This is Levin Aronian versus Vishy Anand in the Tata Steel in 2013. So some of you will have seen this game before. So this is a semi-Slav. We're not too bothered about this, but this is all home preparation. This is all theory. So we've got our knights here. So what are our knights going to do? Well, our knights want to get developed. With blocking our bishop in, we want to get some center control, maybe play c5 or e5 at the right moment. So our knights can support that. Queen c2, they're eyeing up the h7 pawn. Bishop b7, rook c8, so now we're eyeing up the queen. Knight g5, so this is where Aronian went wrong, okay? Because this is what Anand's team at home prepared. So you're attacking this pawn 3 times, but what does Anand do? Plays c5, ignores that threat completely. Knight takes, and now knight g4. He's doing exactly the same thing on this side. And you can see a lot of the pieces are going to start to come to life now. Our knights have got good active squares, and we're going for the kill. f4. So Aronian had to stop this bishop threat because it's just too scary. C takes d4. Now we open our rook up against the queen, and we're trying to destroy this pawn structure and get our knight in. Bishop c5. This is where Anand starts to go mental because this is some insanely good chess. Basically, the problem is this knight is going to get trapped at some point, and if we can swing our queen around, um, or just threaten it at some point, or even take out the bishop, then this knight is going to become a liability. So bishop drops back, attacking this knight, because you can't take this. This is it's a bit of a tricky one. And now knight d to e5. Right, I never understood this position when I first saw it. We're already over 15 minutes, but let's continue anyway, because this is a fantastic game. So the knight jumps into e5, and yeah, so bishop takes g4. First we have an intermediate check, and then our other knight lands on g4 in a lovely aggressive position. Knight takes f8, Anand just ignores this completely, cements his knight on here, getting ready to swing the queen around and just say, thanks very much, game over. And now, queen takes g6, she can't take the knight because this will be mate. Queen e2, now you can't take the knight because it's pinned. Queen d3, and bishop e3, and Aronian resigned here. So yeah, as much as I don't understand that game well enough, it's a brilliant game, and I urge you all to check it out in your own time. There's there's just too many threats here. The bishop has decided to come in and cut the queen's protection of h3 off. So now let's just make a move for white. So this will be checkmate because the queen can take this pawn because it's pinned. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that quick introduction to the knights. They are a bit of a complicated piece, so I'll be doing more on them later. But that is one of the best ever games you'll see, because it's just everything's hanging, and yeah. So let's quickly, because I've gone over, I may as well just carry on talking now. Because okay, so what have we learned? Knights like to stick in the center because they get more squares. They move in an L shape. Knights like to fork things, so we hit two pieces at once. Knights love a good outpost in the middle of the board where they're strong and cemented in. In Anand versus Topalov, we learned that knights, you need to maneuver your knights around to get them to good squares and good outposts. So this knight ended up having a journey all the way over here, and then it was strong, and then Anand won this game. And you can also throw your knights in on e6 and go bam, stick that in your pipe. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that one. I'm sorry I went over 15 minutes, but they were some pretty nice games though. As for myself, there is a bit of an update. I'm taking part in a competition to make a Chessable course, and maybe win some money from Simon Williams, who will then commentate it for me. So yeah, it's going to be similar to my AlphaZero one, where adding to your attacker's toolbox with sort of stereotypical sacrifices, exchange sacrifices, pawn sacrifices, sacrifices in front of the king, using your pawns as crowbars, famous attacking games, just general motifs that anyone can just put in, like how to find a plan, how to look for ideas, all that sort of stuff. But that is a lot of work in progress, and I will definitely keep you updated about that one. But it'll be more of the style of my AlphaZero one, a bit higher level than what we're looking at here. So yeah, I hope you enjoy that one. Yeah, knights are difficult, but we will move on to rooks next, and I do like a good rook move. We've got the rook swinger, castling, and all this lot. It'll be good, and stay tuned for the next one. I'll see you later.